Take the exit. Turn right into the drive-thru.
Nope, I'm making dinner tonight.
You don't have time. Josh has practice.
Oh, that's right. I'll just get a salad.
And fries?
No, just the salad.
But salad cancels fries.
Salad only.
Fries.
Salad.
Fries.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on the road to successful weight loss.
Hey, can I get the...
Fries.
Salad. Sorry.
Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised.
My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm back to finish my coverage of the disappearance of Elisa Roberson from Aransas Pass, Texas. Last week, with the help of Elisa's sister Ruby, we learned about their family structure, the day Elisa went missing, and we touched on who the police began speaking to in the early days of the investigation. This week, we're diving right back into the investigation, persons of interest, and of course, how you can help. This is part 2 of the disappearance of Elisa Roberson. If you haven't listened to part 1 of Elisa's story, I highly recommend going back and listening to that before listening to this. Otherwise, you'll be missing a lot of context. But as a very brief refresher, on August 6, 1989, 13-year-old Elisa Roberson vanished from Aransas Pass, Texas, after leaving her home around 5:45 p.m. to meet her friend Debbie Green. They planned to meet halfway, and then go back to Debbie's house to play with Barbies. The plan was for Debbie's dad, 59-year-old Bob Green, to later drive Elisa home. But Elisa never made it to the meeting spot. She was last seen by a few people in her neighborhood walking to the school before getting into a red or maroon car. While police and her friends and family searched for Elisa, nothing was found. Her family immediately feared that she may have been taken by her mother's ex-boyfriend, Ralph Gonzalez, who Ruby says was a very dangerous and abusive man, who had also threatened their mother shortly before Elisa went missing. It seemed that everything was pointing to Ralph Gonzalez, but when Elisa went missing, he was MIA. So while the Aransas Pass PD was tracking him down, they asked Bob Green to come down to the station to speak with them about Elisa, which is exactly where we'll pick up. The Roberson family considered Bob Green to be a good family friend. The two families had a long history of their kids being friends, and Bob was even their landlord for a period of time. Doing things like offering Elisa a ride home was a very normal occurrence, and getting involved in the search for Elisa seemed completely in character. So it makes sense that the Aransas Pass PD was interested in speaking with him for these reasons, and for others that I'll go into in just a minute. First, let's talk about what Bob told the police about the day Elisa went missing. As we know, Bob says that he did not see Elisa that day, and talked to his daughter Debbie after Elisa went missing. That's when he seemingly jumped into action looking for Elisa. Bob worked as a handyman, and that day it was confirmed that he had done some work mowing lawns. He told investigators that after that, he began working in his shop, and around the time Debbie was supposed to meet Elisa, he'd fallen asleep in his car, and had been asleep for some time. But the Aransas Pass PD had a hard time believing this. Ruby told me that Bob Green's shop was really more like a shed. So basically, you have a car inside of a building in the middle of the Texas summer. If Bob Green fell asleep inside of his car in these conditions, it would have been like an oven in there. This was confirmed by investigators as well. They consulted with experts who confirmed that if Bob's story of falling asleep in his car were true, he would have been dead in about an hour due to the heat. So investigators just weren't buying his story. But you may be asking, why would Bob Green want to hurt Elisa? Well, unfortunately, Bob Green has a history of being accused of crimes like sexual assault and indecency with a minor, which he was formally charged with in 1991. He pled no contest and was given 6 years of community supervision probation. But he was released from this early after 42 months. Ruby also told me that one of her friends told her a story about her and her sisters. She said that they were playing in their driveway when their father caught Bob Green masturbating in his car nearby. During our interview, she also recounted a chilling encounter her mom had with Bob Green.
I can see my mom vividly, like her hands are up, like pushing him off of her, and he's trying to force himself on her. And so as soon as I got up there, he, let my mom go. So my mom said he would grab her every time when no one was looking. And I would ask her, I'm like, Mom, why would you want to be, why would you even want to be around him? And why would you think he's nice when he's doing these things? And she goes, well, in those days, the way we were taught is, it's a woman's fault. And it was instilled. It's like in the fiber of our beings, how she grew up. It's a woman's fault when a man, rapes you, beats you. You've done something wrong to deserve this kind of treatment. So she said, in my mind, this is how men are.
Sergeant Linda Thompson with the Aransas Pass PD has been quite open that Bob Green was their number one suspect in Elisa's case. And for her, he still is to this day. It seemed like he had the means, motive, and opportunity. And while Ruby has no doubt that Elisa trusted Bob Green enough to get in a vehicle with him, there was a problem. Elisa was last seen getting into a red or maroon car, and Bob Green didn't own any vehicle matching that description.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. While investigators from the Aransas Pass PD were looking into Bob Green, they were also trying to figure out where Elisa's mother's ex-boyfriend, Ralph Gonzalez, was when Elisa went missing. In part 1 of my coverage of Elisa's case, I told you that Ralph and Elisa's mom, Marina, had broken up not long before Elisa went missing, and after he was seemingly MIA. But Ruby and her mom remember seeing Ralph in town that summer before Elisa went missing. They couldn't pinpoint exactly when. They just remember seeing him and being scared. So they were pretty surprised when investigators told them that Ralph had been located, and his whereabouts when Elisa went missing had been verified. It turns out that Ralph was arrested in Mexico in May 1989, about 3 months before Elisa went missing. He was caught in a Ford pickup truck smuggling weapons across the border. He was still in prison when investigators found him. And after investigators found this out and interviewed him, they told Elisa's family that there was no way he could have abducted Elisa. But Ruby and her mother weren't entirely convinced. Ralph had threatened them before he left, and he always told them that he had friends in high places and knew a lot of bad people.
They did confirm he was there. Linda Thompson mentioned that they talked to him, and that there was no way that he could have been in, that he could have done it. The one thing that we struggle with is that we had actually seen him during that summer of 1989. So that's why there's always been a question in our mind. I'm not saying that I believe them when they say they went and talked to him, that he was there. But how do you make sense out of all of us, between all of us, seeing Ralph that summer kind of lurking around, letting us know he was there, just trying to instill fear in us. So that's what we struggle with. And we know that Ralph had connections. We know that he had a brother who was either a prison guard, or a police officer, but I think it might have been a prison guard, so who worked at that prison. So that's always been a question in our mind that, of course, when there's that, and that prison was also known to be the most corrupt in Mexico at the time. So that's just something that's always been in our minds, that maybe something, someone got paid off to make it look like he was there to kind of distance himself from the situation.
Ralph's abuse towards Marina was documented in a protective order. She explained that after she kicked him out of the house for selling drugs, he broke her arm and kicked her in the stomach while she was 4 months pregnant with their son Alex, Elisa's youngest brother, the one they all assumed Ralph would target if he sought the revenge he'd threatened. So while it may seem a little far-fetched to believe that Ralph Gonzalez may have somehow fudged the dates of his arrest to clear him of any involvement, I'd say stranger things have happened in true crime. I also don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he may have commissioned someone else to do his dirty work for him while behind bars. But of course, that is 100% speculation at this point. As far as the Aransas Pass PD was concerned, Ralph wasn't involved in Elisa's disappearance. And this is really when Elisa's case comes to a standstill. Despite extensive searches for her and even asking the local Boy Scout explorers to go door to door asking about Elisa, nothing has ever been found pointing investigators to her whereabouts. Not a shoe, a scrap of clothing, a piece of hair. Elisa and every trace of her was just gone. At this point, really all they have are those canine units hitting on her scent just past the school. So they think she likely got into a car, which would correlate with the witness statements of her doing exactly that. They have something. They just can't match the car to anyone. They don't find a red or maroon car registered to either Bob Green or Ralph Gonzalez. So again, the case begins to slow down. But over the years, her case was still getting some attention. In 1994, now 5 years since Elisa went missing, postcards with information about her case were mailed to over 57 million addresses across the country, including 7.3 million in Texas alone. It included a new age-progressed photo of what she may look like at age 18. So it's huge exposure for her case. Her mother, Marina, was interviewed by the Corpus Christi Caller-Times about the initiative, as was Detective Mike Thompson from the Aransas Pass PD, who, yes, is related to Linda Thompson. They're married. When speaking with journalist Dan Parker, he said he believes Elisa was abducted, but that they had no suspects and the case remained open. He also said that he had hope Elisa was alive, and that these cards were the biggest thing they've had happen in the case yet. Basically, this corporation Advo, which specializes in direct mail ad campaigns, partnered with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to highlight cases like Elisa's. At this point in 1994, they'd sent out about 20 billion pictures of missing kids through the mail, and the recovery rate of these kids is astounding. 1 in 7 are brought home safe. 68 kids had already been found. So you can imagine the excitement law enforcement and Elisa's family must have felt, and the letdown when it didn't bring her home. There were many tips and sightings reported as a result of these mailers. but nothing panned out. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together, and Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse. So I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the Keys. And it leads on who they might have been running for.
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
The next major development in Elisa's case doesn't really come until 2001. This is when news station Chris TV in Corpus Christi receives a very different piece of mail regarding Elisa Roberson. It was a map, supposedly leading to Elisa's body. The Aransas Pass PD has never revealed exactly what was written. We just know that it was sent anonymously, and whatever this map contained wasn't specific enough for police to do anything. Captain Mike Thompson told the Corpus Christi Caller-Times that he knew the area this person was describing, but they hadn't been able to narrow it down to a specific enough location. He even says that he wished whoever drew it would be more specific, like please write back. But it never panned out. It was another dead end. Marina has been open with the media that she blamed herself for Elisa's disappearance, and after years without her daughter, she moved her family away from Aransas Pass. In an interview with Andrew Christensen for Chris TV, Marina explained that after Elisa went missing, she was terrified for her children and slept with a knife under her pillow. She took the kids and left in the middle of the night to relocate them to Idaho. And eventually, she took down Elisa's photos, saying they were too painful to look at every day. Still, the community in Aransas Pass remembered Elisa. In 2009, a tree was planted in her honor at Keyburger Elementary School, with a plaque that reads, quote, "In memory of Elisa Roberson, and for all the lost children, may they find their way home," end quote. Her family traveled back to Texas for the ceremony. Not much happened in Elisa's case until we fast forward a bit to 2016. This is when Captain Kyle Rhodes took over the case. Like the investigators before him, he decided to focus on Bob Green. That summer, the Aransas PD, with the help of Texas EquiSearch, searched using ground-penetrating radar on his properties. They also cleared a field during the search, but at this point, nothing was found. Around this same time, Ruby and Marina planned to travel back to Aransas Pass to fix up Elisa's memorial. After posting about it on Facebook, she was connected to the organization Lowe's Heroes, an offshoot of the home improvement store Lowe's. They wanted to help. They donated and installed a bench, flowers, plants, and some hummingbird feeders. The trip was a success. Ruby told me that while they were in town, they also connected with Texas EquiSearch, who explained what they'd done while searching Bob Green's properties and their plans for future searches.
And they even took us to his properties. They showed us where they had cleared the brush away and that they were going to start digging and looking in certain spots. And we thought, great, finally. So they asked us, are there any other properties that you know of that Bob Green owned?
What they didn't tell Ruby and Marina was that they also planned to search Elisa's childhood home. For Ruby, this was extremely painful. She'd connected with a volunteer in the organization and fielded a lot of their questions about the case. She felt completely blindsided and really betrayed.
I think that's how we found out. It was on the news and social media that they were searching her childhood home. So it hit us like a freight train from, we don't even know where it came from. We were shocked.
Captain Rhodes told 3 News that construction on the home was concerning to him. Quote, "There used to be an open carport there, and it had since been walled in and taken into part of the house. We thought that maybe the slab that had been poured in there may be covering something up." End quote. But for the record, Ruby denies this. She told me that they never had an open carport, and she has no idea what he's talking about. Captain Rhodes also got in contact with Ruby and Marina, asking if they'd be willing to come to the police station to talk.
They asked if we would come in and talk to them, and we absolutely. And we talked to them, and it was just something. When I had my interview, it seemed to go on forever, and I kept feeling like they're asking the same questions over and over and over again, and it's all about my mom. Did your mom abuse you? Did she hit you? Did she beat you? Did something happen? Did she beat Elisa? It just in any different way they could ask, they were asking. Yeah, we got a spank. Yeah, we got a hit with the switch. Yeah. So trying to explain to them this without saying, but I knew what they were getting at. They're trying to find out if my mom killed Elisa. And I kept telling them nothing happened in that home that day. There was no fight.
They also told Ruby that her mom failed a polygraph test.
They told me she failed the polygraph, that I knew what happened to my sister, that I witnessed it, and that I'm covering for my mom, and that I need to come clean with what I know. And I was crying, and I was upset, and I was like, no. I just couldn't understand what had happened. I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to pit us against each other. They were trying to make us fight. And it worked, because I asked my mom what happened. Like, what did you say, Mom? Like, what happened that, how did this thing turn around? And she goes, well, what would you expect me? I answered the questions they asked me. What more can I give? What more can I do?
Marvel Television's Wonder Man, an 8-episode series, now streaming on Disney+.
A superhero remake, not exactly what we'd expect from an Oscar-winning director.
Action! Simon Williams, audition for Wonder Man.
I'm gonna need you to sign this, assuming you don't have superpowers.
I'll never work again if anyone found out.
My lips are sealed.
Marvel Television's Wonder Man. All 8 episodes now streaming, only on Disney+.
News of Elisa Roberson's childhood home being searched splashed across the media, and all eyes were on her family. Rumors swirled that maybe Elisa didn't make it out of her home that day at all. Captain Rhodes told Ruby that bone fragments were found during the search, that they were being sent off for testing, and that they'd be making an arrest within days. But 7 years later, no arrests have been made in Elisa's case, and 3 News reported that rumors of sonar equipment finding something in the ground were false. So take that for what you will. And it seems that Captain Rhodes wasn't just concerned about Elisa's mother possibly being involved, but also Elisa's brother Tony, who was 10 years old at the time she went missing. He told 3 News, quote, "There was a person of interest that I really wanted to speak with. That was a brother of Elisa, but he was in prison in Alaska, and he committed suicide. So that is an area I can't explore right now. I missed that opportunity." End quote. I told you in part 1 that the reason Linda Thompson was so familiar with Elisa's family was because her younger brother Tony often got into trouble. This unfortunately continued throughout his entire life. In 2002, he pled no contest to the second-degree murder of a man named Ronald Stevens after stabbing him to death. In my interview with Ruby, she reflected on her brother's life. She told me that he'd been born with the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. He stopped breathing for a few minutes before the doctors revived him. She says that back in the 70s, they just weren't fully aware of the impact this type of traumatic event could have on someone. But now they know. She says he was impulsive and hyperactive, always getting into trouble, getting into fights, stealing, and spray painting people's garages. But she maintains that at age 10, he was their protector.
When my mom was being hurt, or any of us kids, because sometimes he would come after us too, Tony would jump out that window onto that mattress, and he would take off to the police department. And it was really close to us. So Tony was the one that, our protector, our little brother was our protector. And so it really hurts. Tony got into some trouble. He ended up in prison in Alaska. The system failed him. We failed him. There was just a lot that we couldn't do to help him, and it just kept getting worse. I'm not at all excusing any of it. But that's the last thing that Tony would have ever done was hurt my mom. And so yes, the police knew my mom because of that, because of Tony. They knew my mom because of Ralph. And my dad got into trouble, so they knew us because of that.
It's hard. Tony was capable of murder. But was he capable of murdering his sister at 10 years old? Well, as if Elisa's case wasn't complicated enough, another theory about her family and Bob Green emerged. Ruby says Debbie Green told her that her father confessed to helping Marina hide Elisa's body. Ruby believes Debbie also told this to police, sparking the new searches in 2016, but that's never been confirmed by law enforcement. However, Debbie herself told the Gone Cold podcast that she believes Elisa never left home that day. She believes that Elisa was trying to escape her mother, and while doing so, she fell down the stairs, broke her neck, and died, sparking the alleged cover-up. But there's a major issue with this theory. If Elisa never made it out of the house that day, that would mean that the dogs were wrong. It would also mean that every single witness who claimed to have seen Elisa walking and getting into that red or maroon car was also wrong. Unfortunately, statements from law enforcement have done little to clear all these rumors up. Captain Rhodes spoke with Chris TV in 2019, saying new technology and ground-penetrating radar has allowed them to make some progress in the case. And, quote, "I'm not going to sit here and say for sure people are going to be charged with a crime, but I think the potential is there to reach a successful resolution," end quote. But in 2021, he said basically the opposite, that neither the sites related to Bob Green or Elisa's childhood home yielded any results. Captain Rhodes retired in 2024. A man named Eric Blanchard took over as police chief not long after that. He maintained the belief that Elisa's family may have been involved in her disappearance. He held this position for less than a year before leaving the department, but Ruby had a chance to speak with him about Elisa's case to get to the bottom of what may be at her childhood home.
When we talked to Chief Blanchard in August, we told him we would pay for that because he said they have evidence of to believe that we're responsible for Elisa's disappearance and likely her death. So we challenged him. And he said the reason they can't search the home any further is because of funding. They don't have the funding to do it. So we right there on the spot, my husband, my mom, Richard, and my brother just told him right there, we'll pay for it to have that house demolished so that you can recover my sister's remains. And his eyes were about that big when we said that, because we're challenging people now. If you're going to make those claims, we're going to hold you accountable for that. And you as a law enforcement agency have a right to the family to follow through with what you believe to be the case. So that's just the end of it. We've never been afraid. We've never done anything to keep them from finishing. In fact, we want them to finish the job that they started in 2016, so that we can now move on, because it's a cloud that's still hanging over our heads, and you can't move forward in the investigation. You can't move forward when that's still sitting there, right? And that's the worst damage they could have done. Not even our reputations or the horrible things that have been said about my family. It's the injustice that was done to my sister in her case, and putting it kind of on the back burner. So it's just common sense to me. If you believe remains there's no way a law enforcement agency is going to walk away from a site that they believe remains are and do nothing and not recover them.
I asked Ruby why she felt the Aransas Pass PD began shifting their suspicion to her family. And she believes it was in part due to her mother's insistence that they investigate Ralph Gonzalez. Back when Elisa first went missing, Marina wrote the Aransas Pass PD a series of letters about Ralph and his activities. But after not feeling heard, she wrote a letter anonymously as well. Linda Thompson quickly realized that Marina was the author and confronted her about it. Marina confessed. But Ruby says the damage was done. When there were fresh eyes on the case decades later, Ruby believes they took this as Marina trying to shift the blame away from her family to Ralph.
So in 1989, when when Elisa first went missing, and my mom kept trying to get the police to listen to her, that it was Ralph. She kept screaming on the rooftops, you guys need to look at Ralph. She felt she wasn't being heard. So she was writing a couple anonymous letters telling the police department of some of Ralph's, and these were just regular letters, okay? These are Ralph's activities, his drug activities. This is what he's done. She even talked about the time that he was watching the news and they were talking about a murder and that he got up and shaved his mustache. So she detailed every little thing and sent a couple letters into the police department. Then she got scared. She just started thinking, he's going to find out it's me and he's going to kill me. And so she stopped writing. I think a couple, because I was able to see a couple of them. A couple of them she signed with her name. But then at that point, she started getting really scared. And so then she decided to put another letter together. And this time, this letter was, she cut out letters from a magazine because she didn't want anyone to see her handwriting. So she cut out the letters from a magazine, put them on a letter, and didn't sign it. It was completely anonymous. She submitted that letter, and of course they eventually found out that it was her who wrote the letter. So I just want to make it very clear. She wrote only one letter like that because I've heard so many people talking about letters. She wrote 2 letters where she signed her name, and then when she started getting scared, she decided to write one more letter, but this time with the cutouts from a magazine. So you can imagine how that looked. Of course, Linda Thompson, they knew that they knew my mom, and they knew that it was just in her moment of grief and panic and fear that she did this, and it was a bad call, a bad judgment call on her part, and she knows that, and she realizes that was something that's always kind of hung over her head,
Like I said, it's hard. On one hand, you have the original investigators on Elisa's case, Linda and Mike Thompson, saying there's no way her family could have been involved in Elisa's disappearance. They maintain their belief that Bob Green is the prime suspect. On the other hand, you have new investigators casting suspicion on Elisa's family, saying there's evidence to back these claims but not disclosing what that evidence is, and saying that they're at a standstill in the investigation due to funding. Overall, I think one thing is clear. Elisa's sister Ruby wants to know the truth. She's willing to fund the searches for Elisa at her childhood home. She's currently suing the Aransas Pass PD to release Elisa's case file. She's also hired a private investigator to look into her sister's case. Elisa's family has continued to push for answers in her case. They even reached out to the Aransas Pass City Council, asking them to designate August 6th as Elisa Roberson Remembrance Day. And in 2024, they did exactly that for the 35th anniversary of her disappearance. That same year, her family traveled back to Aransas Pass and held a memorial walk to help raise awareness for her case. Elisa's family is not shying away from these rumors, and they continue to keep her case in the public eye, despite suffering great scrutiny and online harassment. They even pushed for Elisa's case to be investigated by a third-party law enforcement agency. They wrote dozens of letters to Captain Rhodes, state representatives, Texas Rangers, the FBI, and every other agency they could think of. And in November 2024, the Aransas Pass PD handed the case over to the Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit at the Texas Attorney General's office. That's pretty much where Elisa's case is today. It remains open and active with many things hanging in the balance. Which brings me right to our call to action. Please share Elisa's case. We may not know what happened to her, but someone out there does. And maybe with enough attention and enough resources, she can finally be found. As a reminder, 13-year-old Blanca Elisa Roberson was last seen walking away from her home on the evening of August 6, 1989 in Aransas Pass, Texas. She is Hispanic with brown hair and brown eyes. At the time of her disappearance, she was approximately 5 feet tall and weighed about 120 pounds. She was last seen wearing a light blue Mickey Mouse t-shirt and blue shorts. She does have a scar on her right knee. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Aransas Pass Police Department at 361-758-5224. You can also contact Elisa's family directly at missingelisa1989@gmail.com or through the Missing Elisa Roberson Facebook group, which is linked in the episode description. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The door is open, and our emotional support puppies, Popcorn and Heber, are in the room. The day this episode comes out, the day I'm recording this after show, is Alyssa's birthday. She'd be 41 today. I wrote out something on social media for her that I want to read here today, and I'm going to do my best to not get teary-eyed on you, even though I already am. It says, "Happy birthday, Alyssa. You were such a light in this world when you had every excuse not to be. Even in the darkest times, you took the time to let me play race car, braided my hair in the finest braids you could for that perfect 90s wavy finish the next day, spent an hour painting the American flag on my nails for the 4th of July, and meticulously picked lice out of my hair. Even the times you made me scream and cry are happy memories now. I'd do anything to have you double bounce me off a trampoline, hide in the closet to scare me on my birthday, or pin me down and dangle a loogie over my face. I'll never forget the sacrifices you made to take care of me. I hope that wherever you are, you have your M&M posters on the wall, cozied up with your Blue's Clues blanket, listening to Faith from Limp Bizkit, eating your sour candies with the best silver eyeshadow application in history. I wish you could see how many people you've helped and inspired through your story. But more than that, I wish we could all go back to 2001 and save you. I wish we could have an amazing, boring life spoiling our nieces and nephews, and having drinks talking about how we survived and got away from Dad. You deserved and deserve so much better. I promise I'm still trying. I love and miss you always." Believe it or not, I don't love crying on the internet or on podcasts, but the only reason I'm here is because of Alyssa, and I couldn't have a secret after show on the day of her birth without talking about her. So happy birthday, Alyssa. I also thought this would be a good time now to talk about some upcoming things in the podcast that, again, it all goes back to Alyssa. I wanted to tell you that I've been working on a case for over a year. I was invited by law enforcement who oversees it to cover it. It's a case I've never seen covered in true crime. And really, I'm telling you not just to tease these episodes coming out, but to show the progress this show has made. and to thank you for your support for making that happen. When I first started this podcast, I was greatly accused of just hating law enforcement, of bashing the police. I'll never forget the first time a cop reached out to me on TikTok. I started bawling, and no surprise, I cry over everything. But I was bawling because, she reached out and said, I listened to your podcast. What you're doing is important. Thank you. And just having that police validation after so many years of getting ridiculed and criticized for my approach on Alyssa's case, not from everyone, of course, but always, the bad feedback sticks with you. And I really, I give credit where credit is due. And sometimes law enforcement is great, and sometimes they are not so great. And I try my best to just stick to the truth and stick to the facts. But getting that validation from law enforcement meant everything to me. And having this department reach out to me and say, we reached out to you because we believe that you're truthful, that you're ethical, and that you will handle this case properly means the world to me. It just hits a different level of legitimacy than just sitting here talking into a microphone without law enforcement participation. It's just really cool, and I wanted to say thank you. Your support has helped make this happen. Your support has made this show what it is. Your support has made my career in true crime what it is. When I first started talking about ethics in true crime, I was not the most popular person out there. A lot of people called me ungrateful. They said that I should just take the coverage that I'm begging for essentially and be quiet about it. Of course, again, not everyone, but it makes sense. When I started talking about what the reality of being inside the true crime community as a family member was like, people were horrified and creators were upset that I was speaking out. But I continued to speak my truth, and you guys rallied around me. You rallied around this show. You rallied around Alyssa's case. And I'll never forget that. While this show will always be created to minimize harm to those discussed and their loved ones, I know that it's not how traditional true crime content is made. But because of you, it's still more successful than I could have ever imagined, especially after starting in my closet with the world's worst laptop and a cheap microphone. So again, I just wanted to say thank you. I hope I can continue to bring you quality episodes about unsolved cases that need our help for as long as you'll have me. Speaking of which, let's move right on to talking about Elisa Roberson. As you can imagine, this was a hard case for me to cover. Ruby and I were both 12 when our sisters went missing. Elisa's case hits really close to home. And just telling this story is also difficult because you kind of have this battle between investigators. Early investigators who were there on day one, who did investigate her family and don't believe that they could have been involved. They make media appearances saying exactly that. Then you have Captain Rhodes coming in decades later telling the media exactly the opposite, that they heavily suspect the family. It's not just witnesses or the family against law enforcement, it's literally law enforcement against law enforcement. During my interview with Ruby, we were really frank about this idea, about confronting it head-on of these accusations against her family. And she said, absolutely, thank you. We do need to discuss them. I want to discuss them. I want to face this head-on. And in a case like this, I don't think that there's much more you can ask for. I will say some of the media discrepancies that were tough to navigate through were these conflicting statements from law enforcement. They were all over the place. Again, you had this consistent, coherent story at the beginning, Linda and Mike Thompson backing this family. And then you have Captain Rhodes coming in saying that he thinks the family did it, telling Ruby that they're going to make an arrest within days, but then telling the media ultimately that there was nothing there. It was hard. But again, I just tried to present everything that I could. Now, let's talk about the heroes of this episode, or these episodes, I should say. First, I have Linda Thompson, and that's for taking action immediately when she found out Elisa was missing. For her really getting upset and talking about this protocol, right? That they broke protocol and that she should have been called. And the instant she got this case, she jumped into action. They started doing searches. They went door to door looking for Elisa. She made those initial searches in the beginning happen. So that's why she makes hero of this episode. My second set of heroes is the company Advo and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And that's for their campaign with these mailers. I've talked about this in past episodes. I went into the history of it, so I felt like I didn't need to do that in this episode. But if you are so intrigued, I definitely encourage you to go look that up. It's a really cool partnership. Essentially, it's the "Have you seen me" ads that I still get in the mail today. They're at the back of like those the thin papered, it's almost like a newspaper, but in like really nice color and glossier paper. And it's usually at the very end on the back of it. At the very bottom, you'll see the thin strip of "Have you seen me?" And it's typically a missing, well, I think it's always a child. Oh, you know what? I think there's more than children. Don't quote me on that. But there's typically a picture of the person when they first went missing and then an age progress photo. Those are amazing. My sister's been featured in one. It's a really cool partnership. And yeah, that's why they're also the heroes of this episode. I know that the mailers didn't result in, tangible evidence or leads for Elisa, but they tried. And you gotta love that. It's one more thing that her loved ones can kind of check off the list and say these many people have heard about Elisa's case. There's some form of comfort there. Last on my list is Lowe's Heroes. I always try to shout out companies who are doing good, and of course, like I mentioned in the episode, Lowe's Heroes did donate to Elisa's memorial with the tree and the bench and all the accompanying features like the hummingbird feeders and plants and flowers. It's just a really cool thing to see, and I always like to give credit where credit is due and shout out a good company doing good. So thank you, Lowe's. Now let's go on to our segment of hope. Today, I am reading from USA Today. This is an article from Celine Martin from March 31st, 2025. The title reads, "A girl went missing in 1975. Her remains found cross-country have finally been identified." Laura O'Malley was 13 when she was reported missing from Queens in August 1975. And in the 1990s, her skeletal remains were found in California. But of course, at that time, they were unidentified. Investigators say that they have no idea how she ended up in California. It looks like they retested the remains around 2016, and at that time, they could only confirm that the victim was female. And they were toying with the idea that her remains were part of a homestead burial rather than a missing person's remains. But then they conducted radiocarbon dating, and they learned that she was likely born between 1964 and 1967. And that she likely died between 1977 and 1984. So essentially, they just kept testing, kept gathering more information, and Laura was finally identified. The sheriff's office does credit Othram. In their statement, they said, quote, "We are deeply grateful for our partnership with Othram and the use of forensic advancements that have provided long-awaited answers to Laura's family." End quote. Now, Laura Ann O'Malley, 13-year-old again from Queens, New York, her case is still unsolved. And they are actively investigating it. If you have any information, you can call 831-471-1121. But her case makes our segment of hope for obvious reasons, and I'll do something that I've done in other segments of hope in the past, and just remind anyone out there who may be a bad person, anyone out there who may have committed a crime in, let's say, 1975, that technology is catching up to you. Technology, especially in this space, is rapidly evolving every single day. Crimes that were committed decades ago are getting solved what feels like by the hour at this point. So truly, there is a reason to always have hope. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.
Tires matter. They're the only part of your vehicle that touches the road. Tread confidently with new tires from Tire Rack. Whether you're looking for expert recommendations or know exactly what you want, Tire Rack makes it easy. Fast, free shipping, free road hazard protection, and convenient installation options. Go to TireRack.com to see tire test results, tire ratings, and consumer reviews, and be sure to check out all the special offers. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.